Yo, JD here, Tyrrell Limits, and as you can see, back on F1 2020 as always, and we are finally back with TSRL. I believe this is round 5 of this season 12, and we arrive at Montreal, aka the track of the Wall of Champions, and you can see by the standings here, an up and down first 3 rounds, but last time out we did manage to take the win at Monza, which was a very surprising victory for me, but we did exactly what we needed to do. And as a result of that, I said it before, I feel like I've been driving very well recently in my races, but I just haven't been able to put them together. But now being able to put that race together at Monza, I just feel a massive weight off my shoulders, because honestly, league racing is very, in my opinion, heavily dependent on momentum. And if you have some bad races, it's really hard to get yourself out of that slump. But when you have good results, it just gives you that confidence back. And I definitely just needed that confidence in myself to know that I can still do it in putting it all together. And that is what has transpired here at Montreal, a track that I very much fear because of track limits and just normal raw pace. But honestly, the 2 days before this race, I was not feeling good
that should be enough
at all. But with some practice, with some help from Keaton Lutt, aka CRG Lutt, we definitely felt like we had a good pace. And you can see in qualifying 2, getting through on the soft tire, a lot of people electing to try the medium tires. You saw I was showing there. And coming into this race, I just had a very clear idea of what I wanted to do, and that was to make sure I started on the soft tyres and have 2 fresh medium tyres. I wasn't even going to touch the medium tyres in really qualifying whatsoever.
Very good last.
Which I think a few people did try and do. But you can see here now, we're coming on to our final lap, getting through into Q3 reasonably comfortably, and done quite a good banker of a 7.4, which around this circuit, I've notoriously had some pretty poor pace, especially in the qualifying trim. So that was a very big surprise, and you can see we're actually up already on our time here. So going through here to hit the first blind corner of the lap, navigating that very nicely, and going into this first sector is an 18.7, so a very solid start to lap. And on the exit of here now, we're about 600 up, so a very tidy lap so far. Going under the bridge, really love this corner. This is probably my best corner on the track, and we get a pretty similar exit to we did on the previous lap. Now going to this hairpin, this is probably my trickiest corner, but we've got a purple middle sector apparently. We're trying to get a good launch up here, and we lost a little bit of time through that corner. And going into here, I did such a good last chicane on my previous lap. I said to myself, that's not going to be enough. And you're about to hear what I'm saying. We're going to have to send it through. So going through the chicane, we absolutely nail it. And you can see the delta, how much time we've gained. And going across the line, there's 7.3. Yes! Very happy of that. And you can see I was buzzing. But then, Hawks beats me, which then does bring me back down to earth. But nonetheless, I knew that was going to be a time that should get me near the front, and it does. In the top 3, LCR Leopard, our championship leader, in P6, 2 tenths behind. That only just fuels the confidence even more, and in race trim, I was feeling very strong around this track. Always set up my car to be a bit faster and more drivable in race conditions, and I have the 2 fresh mediums as well, which I think a lot of people did overlook. So as we've got 4 lights, 5 lights here, crucial that we get a good start. I definitely prefer starting left hand side, and we get a very good launch. Sid Critch gets a pretty poor getaway, so he's going to have the inside for the right hander, but we just carry that momentum, go around the outside of him, and now into P2. What a perfect start to this race. SHZ Dominic up into P4, but he has a drive through penalty, so Leopard has made up some positions, and inevitably he will be going into P4 as well. But in the meantime, on our side of things, a pretty much almost perfect start from our perspective, because BMG Hawks, he is trying to get away at this point, which you are about to see. I think he's trying to break my DRS, but if I can stay in this DRS zone whilst saving my battery power and my tyres and my fuel, this is the position I really want to be in this race. So on this first lap, just making sure I stay with him. See Critch coming under a little bit of pressure from behind, but I was very, very confident that in my pace, in terms of not getting corner cut penalties and really looking after my tyres, because that is a big thing around this track, which again I think a lot of people don't realise, that you have to try and keep the tyres as fresh as possible. And that's a very big indicator as well, that I set the fastest up in the first lap when Hawks crossed the line, which shows that he actually got a warning on that first lap, because otherwise the game would have given him the fastest lap of the race. So I already knew he had one warning, and as I said before, just having these factors go into your mind just makes me more relaxed, just gives me more confidence and more commitment, and I was really feeling in the zone right here now. So you can see we stayed within the DRS zone pretty comfortably, and we still have an abundance of power of the ERS on board. So we're coming on to lap 4, getting a little bit closer here. So I definitely felt at this stage of the race my pace was very, very strong here, but Critch is following very close behind. I tend to realise he really likes to try and put as much pressure as possible on drivers, but you can see our ERS is actually on 100%. So I'm going to decide to try and use it now, because I really wanted to try and get past him, just try and alleviate a little bit of the pressure from behind. But I can see Hawks is definitely deploying his battery power, so I decided to turn up a little bit early, and he actually dives into the pits, and that's very, very early for a two-stop, as Critch gets an amazing chicane. He tries to put me under a bit of pressure, which once again I think is only really going to slow us both down, but I still have a lot of ERS to play with. But Hawks has decided to go for that undercut to try and break out of that DRS zone, but we did not follow him in. And on the next lap as well, we are just going to continue, because I had the plan of exactly when I wanted to pit before this race. I definitely did my homework and research and testing in practice, and I felt pitting early would definitely not benefit me in the long run. But as we approach the end of lap 7, this is the earliest I was willing to pit in the race, and since Hawks went for that 2-lap undercut, I decided to do that, as the others have continued, of Critch and Antoine. Antoine is, as I said before, many occasions, probably the biggest driver on form on this game at the moment. So the good thing is we're not going to get held by anyone here. We're going to come out into hopefully nice clean air. Let's see where BMG Hawks is. He's already gone past me, but due to the nature of the pit lane, we could come fairly close to him again. And coming out of here, we just get ahead of LCR Leopard. That is very crucial, because he actually followed Hawks in on the same lap at the end of lap 5. So I already know that I'm in a stronger position for him going towards the end of this race. And if I have more pace in him as well, then I can try and put as much distance as possible between myself and Leopard, who is in the lead of this championship. So we come towards the end of lap 8 here. Let's see what happens. Very, very close to a corner cut there. And I think it's Hawks who's actually overtaken my teammate, as is Critch. Sync Critch is now coming out of the pits. Antoine has actually decided to continue, which I wasn't aware of at this point. I felt like he pitted, so I wasn't aware that he did continue, because the one stop is definitely possible round here. It's probably just a less optimal strategy, as we're now coming up behind my teammate of Radionics, and we're using a little bit of the overtake and getting the move done nice and early. Leopard is not able to follow me through, so I'm going to try and make the most of this once again. And you can see the gap to Hawks is just under 2 seconds, and we have the likes of Perondi and a few more people who haven't pitted yet. So the goal here now is to try and get onto the back of him very slowly without burning my tyres, because I feel like, especially since we're going on another set of mediums, the undercut would not be that powerful. So if I can try and overtake him before the end of the stint, that is exactly what I'm aiming for. But as we go underneath the bridge, BMG Hawks actually gets a 3-second time penalty, as well as we have actually started to catch him fairly quickly here, with still a very good amount of fuel on board, a good amount of the ERS. And yeah, I'm just thinking back to this moment, my thought process was just that I just feel like I'm just driving so well, and I'm just driving so relaxed, where I'm not thinking of making any errors. I'm thinking about when I am going to catch him. So I'm just being very, very positive in this moment, rather than just fearing the worst. I just felt like I knew that I was going to do well this race. It's just about how I aim to go about doing it. And so on this lap here, this is very, very crucial. We've actually got within the DRS zone of BMG Hawks here, and Leopard is slowly approaching that DRS exit range. So going through here, I'm going to try my best to try and get within the DRS zone, because we're not scheduled to pit really for another 10 laps. So if I could get ahead of him, then that would be absolutely perfect. But going through this corner, these are my best sequence of corners on the track by far, and you can see we're comfortably within this DRS zone, and that is really half the battle. Once you're in the DRS zone with fresher tyres behind someone, and you feel like you got more pace than them, then it's just really a game of chess of when I decide to pull the trigger and actually overtake him. But one thing I have to do keep in mind is that St. Critch has overtaken Leopard now, who Leopard actually has a 3-second time penalty himself, but Critch actually has fresher tyres and me, and he definitely seems to be quite fast around here. So I would say at the moment, me and Critch are the two quickest drivers on track at the moment. So we're behind BMG Hawks. Felt like he was starting to struggle a little bit at the pace, and you can see I'm just being a bit overly cautious with that last chicane of death, I decided to call it, because it's just so easy to get an invalidation. And not even that, it's just so easy to get damaged, to be bounced off into the world champions. That was my mindset again throughout this race, is just to get through it without any damage, without any warnings. But honestly, at this moment, I wasn't even fearing that was going to happen. I felt like I was just in complete control of the situation until that point, which was another harsh reminder that a lapse of concentration can really completely destroy your race. And that gave me the green flag. It was like, okay, I'm now going to overtake Hawks. I can't afford to stay behind him for too long, otherwise Critch is just going to keep attacking me, and with this dirty air it could push me into a mistake. So I decided to pull the trigger now. I don't think Hawks has got much to defend with, so go tail off the ERS once you go along side by side, and it's going to be quite a comfortable move down into this last chicane, and we get the move done, DRS on the exit. But unfortunately Critch actually follows him through, because he seems to be so good through that last chicane, having no fear going to a smasher who has unfortunately left the session because I think he had damage at the start of the race, comes out the pits on the soft with his AI, which is actually going faster than what we are going at this point of the race. But moving on to that 14, Critch starting to put a bit of pressure on me, and you can see the gap to Hawks is almost 9/10 of a second. So as the laps go past, my aim here is just to try and break out of that DRS zone. And the pace we're showing right now is a very, very strong pace. You can see the gap is about 2 seconds to Leopard, 1.3 to Hawks. On the next lap, it's 2.2 as we get our second warning, that is, in fact. So I already had a warning before this. But you can see the gap behind. We have actually broken out of the DRS zone. So now it is really a two-horse race at this point in the race here. And Critch, once again, very, very strong going for that last game. But you can just see the gap. But Hawks has completely fallen off. I think his tyres are really starting to suffer, along with Leopards as well. So we've got almost 4 seconds to those guys behind. So nothing really to fear in terms of an undercut. But you're about to see Leopard now decides to pit. And I wasn't really going to take any chances of that. I didn't want to be undercut myself. So I was scheduling to pit on the next lap. However, Critch, with the fresher tyres and the pace he's got, is quite close to me. I was using my ERS here because I was fearing he's going to be doing exactly what he is doing, and that is him overtaking me as we go into the pits. And he gets ahead of me, which is actually a really, really big deal, which you are about to see why.
Risk getting damaged.
And you can hear me say I'm not risking getting any damage because there's just no point in trying to push as hard as possible and get a 5-second time penalty. But as a result of the game, you get held in the pits when someone drives past you, and although he was only a few tenths ahead of us, we've actually dropped out of the DRS zone, and you can see how much that can kill your race. He's 1.5 seconds ahead now, and we have to actually catch him on pace, and he doesn't have a penalty as well. But I don't know if you caught what I said there. He actually decided to use the medium tyres in qualifying. So his first set of mediums that he used in the race are going to be fresh. But I knew the mediums that he used, or the mediums that he's on right now, I know they are not fresh. He's done about 2 or 3 laps of them in the qualifying. So my tyres are actually fresher than his. And I have to say, around this circuit, you may not think it's a big deal, but it definitely is towards the end of the race here. So instead of him doing 14 laps, it's as if he's doing 17 laps, and the wear can go quite high towards the end of the race. So I was feeling really good still with my pace, but just having that psychological advantage, knowing that I have the pace and the tyre advantage towards the end of the race, I'm just doing the exact same approach as I did with BMG Hawks, where I'm just going to try and catch him as efficiently as possible without using my tyres too much, or the battery power, or the fuel. So when I do catch him, I will have enough weaponry or armory to deploy to make a very easy overtake, and then I'll be able to hopefully keep him at bay if needed on the laps afterwards. But we're coming up to BRL Perondi here because there are a few people who still haven't pitted or still got another pit stop to make. He's on the hard tyres, so I think he was trying to do the one stop, but the hard tyres are just a very, very slow compound, and I don't think he's really fighting this too hard here. But the gap is still about 1.8 seconds to Critch, which still is a fair gap to catch at the moment. So we still have to push reasonably hard here. But you can see Antoine, who has done that one-stop strategy. I've only just realised this now. You know, he's got quite a big gap with 10 laps to go. So his pace was very, very strong on those hard tyres. But the mediums you are about to see are just very, very fast. But the predicament I was realising at this point is that if Critch catches Antoine before I catch him, he could then effectively use him as a shield against me, where Antoine could just stay in his DRS, or if he can escape the DRS zone of Antoine before I get past him, then that just makes my life a lot harder because Critch does not have a penalty as well. And who's to say that Antoine's penalty can't even be removed either? So I realise that I need to really try and catch him before he gets into the DRS zone of Antoine. So you can see here now, I've actually started to use quite a bit of the ERS. I'm down to almost 20%, and was slowly catching Critch. But I think as the longer as this race goes on, the more advantage is definitely going to play into my hands. And you can see here, going into that chicane, I was almost under 10%. And still keep in mind, I had 2 warnings at this point in the race. I think on lap 16 I had 2 warnings, so I still had 19 laps of this race to do without getting another warning, because Critch seems to be pretty good on track limits himself. So, but this is the crucial lap. This is the lap where I need to get within the DRS zone, because we are catching Antoine pretty quickly at this point in the race. And as I said, if he catches him at the right time before I catch Critch, then he could use him as a defense mechanism against me in the race here. So going through these corners, once again, these corners are where I felt I definitely just had more time over the other drivers, and we have got within that crucial DRS zone We're not going to be close enough on this lap, but I think we only have really another lap remaining until he gets onto the back of Antoine. So you can see here, I could tell he was using quite a lot of the battery power. I think he knows himself that he needs to catch Antoine before I go for the overtake on him. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very hard for him to win this race, because I have the fresher tyres, and at this stage I definitely had more pace because I caught him from 2 seconds down to 1 second as well. But we're going to be running. You can see a little bit of a twitch of his car, which does indicate that his tyres are now starting to go off, which I keep referring back to. Just keeps on fueling the confidence. So I know he is struggling with it now, and you can see he's going very, very defensive, and you will be able to notice the red light now starts to flash. So I know I have at least 6 or 7%. That's a huge,
the lag, man.
Huge moment of lag there. So that is definitely not what you want. So we're coming on to lap 32. Over 3 laps of this race to go, and you can see he is only about half a second away from getting within the DRS zone of Antoine. So I have to overtake him this lap. I knew that I had to overtake him this lap, but I also knew that I'm going to have better traction and I'm going to have more ERS. So I'm going to have to try and get as close as I possibly can. This is really now or never, because if he overtakes him and I get stuck behind Antoine, that could be the race over. And for this championship, with LCR Leopard not doing too well this race, this could be absolutely huge for this championship. So I'm going to try and get as close as I possibly can, braking very, very deep into the corner, taking a nice wide sweeping line. Let's see if we get a good exit. And there's a little bit of lag involved here, so you can see he is stuttering around all over the place. He is absolutely desperate that I don't make this overtake. We're going to use all of the overtake button. He decides to go to the right hand side. We decide to take the racing line, going into the chicane very, very cautiously. And what has happened here? He's actually spun round, and there's been a major incident here. And you can hear what me saying. There's nothing I could do. We are actually going to listen and look to the perspective of the stream itself, because on my side I felt that the contact happened before the corner and I didn't turn into him, and I think you will see from the stream here, as I'm going straight, the contact happens before the corner and he actually gets a penalty for that as well. I think we're actually going to slow it down, so let's have a look at that once again. Going to super slow motion. It appears that he actually drifts into my rear wheel, and that is a result of the contacts as well. But I think we're about to see here, from his perspective, he's not driving straight, he's drifting over onto my side of the track, and I think there was just so much going on. There was definitely a little bit of lag involved. It was very, very unfortunate for him.
I gave him so much room.
And I know on his side at the time, he probably feels that there was an incident where I turned into him, but I can confirm the stewards have looked at that and there was no penalty awarded to me. It was deemed as a racing incident. And at the time, honestly, I felt the same. I didn't feel like there was contact before I turned in. And it looked that way with the proximity arrows as well. But we move on, and over the next couple of laps, I was really trying to just get over that, because I was fearing that maybe there is a slight chance of a penalty. So I had to really get my refocus done. But we got within the DRS zone of Antoine. He does have a 3-second time penalty. However, you never know if it could be removed or not. So I really wanted to try and win this race on track to just try and negate that. So even if he got it removed, I'll still be winning. So I am pushing quite hard here, but I don't think I'm going to be quite close enough going down this main straight. So we're going to try and get as good exit as we possibly can. Try and make the move if possible, but we're not going to throw it into the last corner, because we just do not need to do that risk. And going through into here, we aren't going to, because I'm doing a little bit dive to the inside just to try and maybe scare him into maybe another mistake, but that isn't going to work with Antoine. And coming across the line, we are going to take our second win of this season.
Yes! Come on, yes!
And you can tell again, sorry I didn't do the headphone warning. We are very, very happy with that. And honestly, I think in terms of race management, even before the race, knowing that I wouldn't use any mediums during the qualifying to make sure I had fresh mediums, we just executed everything perfectly. I think even the qualifying, that was the maximum I could do with that setup. The decision making, the pit strategy, I think everything we did was perfect, and that has brought me right back into this championship. And once again, massive thank you to CRG Keeden for the help with the setup. He was really a big lifesaver for me, and I've actually posted this up on my memberships page. If you are a member of my channel, you will have access to that now. So massive result for the championship itself. I just want to say many thanks for the support. We are streaming tomorrow for TSRL Mexico, so that should be very interesting. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you very soon. Peace.